You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.
My guest on The Dan Nicholl Show this week is somebody who I first got to meet on a beach in Musenberg, where he attempted to teach me how to surf, almost zero success, but inspired me even more than he had just by reading his story, because he's the only person, not just who I've had on the show, but the only person I know who likes to fight sharks. Caleb Swanepoel, lovely to see you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on the show, Dan. Yeah. Still in several pieces since we saw each other last.
And still smiling. You have this relentless beam and joy of somebody who's probably actually a serial killer because you're just too nice and happy and friendly.
I don't want to be caught out on this episode.
We've
okay?
nailed
So
it.
Wait till I come back, but I'm coming for you.
You've got every reason to be smiling at the moment because you arrived. I remember when you were on the show and we had to send an Uber X to pick you up and drop you off. This time you arrived in a convoy of 6 cars, management team, a helicopter flying overhead because you're now a television star. You've got this really big TV role.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very, very grateful for it. I don't know how big it is, but it's with CakeNet, which is an incredible, production channel, and the Afrikaans community in Johannesburg has really welcomed me in, even though I'm a bit of a Southie. I'm English, had to ramp up the Afrikaans skills, and very excited to be on Deeper Water with CakeNet, yeah.
And it's really exciting, not just because this is going to jettison you into Hollywood and you're going to be this global star.
I hope Hollywood's listening.
It was a character very much created around your own quite extraordinary backstory.
Yeah, and I think someone told me the other day, because I was talking about it. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do I want to have my personal story linked to a fictional character? So Lucas is a shark attack survivor who goes and joins the swimming club after he loses his leg to basically reconnect with the water and heal. And it's been similar but different to my journey. And someone just said to me the other day, because I was kind of giving it a bad rap and going like, oh yeah, I don't know how if I'm even doing a good job with this. And they just said it's brave. And it was a touching comment from them, because I guess it is brave to be vulnerable and to bring your story to life to an audience. But I'm really, really grateful and excited for it, because I get to also showcase my version, or how I see disability, how I've challenged myself, and how I am challenged. So it's an opportunity, because I believe we need to change our perspectives on many things. I can show people that disability doesn't have to be the end. Even though I've lost something and I do miss it, there's still ways of adapting and moving forward. So, I guess I'm lucky, and hopefully more opportunities come from this.
That sense of identity is such an important one, and it's formed a lot of the conversations we have had. But to lead people into that conversation for whom Caleb Swanepoel is not yet a poster up on their bedroom wall, it's as imminent, clearly.
Or on the toilet door where my brother would probably put me.
It's still a poster. You take it, wherever it may be.
I'll take it.
Let's go back, and I know you've had to tell this story a million times, but even though I've heard it a dozen and more, I still get goosebumps every time I do. And it's back to teenage Caleb, who's gone off for a bit of a body surf. You're out in the water, and in almost no time at all, your life changes quite dramatically.
Yeah, way to put me in the right in the deep part. That's really where everything changed. 19 and just turned 20, and so many questions. Just starting out on discovering what it means to be a man and means to be an adult. And I come over the crest of this wave, and there's a great white on the wave I'm about to catch. And I couldn't stand. My brothers were in the water with me. My mom and sisters and friends were watching from the beach house. And I turned to my brothers. They were 10 meters away from me, and I said, "There's a shark. Swim." I knew it was a shark. I just had that instinctive feeling. Put our heads down, started swimming towards the beach. And I've never felt this feeling since in this way. But it's always a new feeling, returning to the thought, that sixth sense that kicks in when you just know something doesn't feel right. And I knew it was going to be me in the water. I just somehow knew, and this shark just slammed into me and latched onto me, and I had a completely out-of-body experience. I remember seeing everything happening from above. I completely disconnected, so I felt the initial impact, And I didn't have a surfboard, didn't have a bodyboard, so I was defenseless as well in the water. And I remember thinking very practically, this is definitely a dream because I'm studying an acting degree. I've just survived my first 6 months at UCT, so I need to be able to carry on, and got pulled from that sort of disbelief into the real dread and truth that this was actually happening. I remember trying to fight the shark, trying to hit it off my leg, but I'll describe it as advice-like grip. It's like your foot stuck in a bear trap. There's no letting go. And I was pulled under the water while I was trying to wrestle with the shark. Obviously, in complete shock, still feeling no pain, and everything stood still for me. I had I would say, a death experience or a near-death experience where I really believed it was my time. And I sometimes joke that it would have been a really great way to go because the ultimate sacrifice has been made. No more uni, no more, just onto the next adventure, And in that moment of peace, in that moment of silence, I asked the universe, am I going to see a white light? And I was kind of waiting to leave. And then something disconnected. And I think at that point, the shark had taken my leg off completely above the knee, severed right through the femur. And I bobbed up like a cork. And who was there? It was my brother. My brother swam back. And he swam back. That's the first thing.
I mean, that's just, someone, even if it's your brother, someone's getting taken by a shark and you swim back into that.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
I think I'm very much alive for a couple of reasons, but my brother saved my life. Alex saved my life that day. And he swam back towards me. When he got to me, I asked him, how bad is it? And he looked down, he saw my leg was gone. And he looked up at me and he said, you've just got a scratch. You're going to be fine. So there's me going, oh, it was a dream. I'm fine. I probably got a little nip. I'm good. And we're making our way back to the beach. And before we could stand again, my brother stops us. And the shark had followed us and circled us and bit into my left leg. I've got this laceration here. At least still works, but it was quite a deep gash and bit into my brother's fin. And then my mom ran into the water. My brother pulled me out, and from there it was waking up my family around me, and the NSRI, the National Sea Rescue Institute, that also played a pivotal role. But one of the miracles that happened, we can argue whether it's a miracle, whether it was luck, or whether I chose to stay. But my femoral artery went into spasm. The orthopedic surgeon said that this is very, very rare that this happens. And if that hadn't happened, I would have bled out within 2 to 3 minutes. So I wouldn't have made it out of the water. So I think on days where I'm really feeling shitty and feeling like I don't have something to contribute to this world, it's beautiful to come back to the story to go, I've survived that and I can move forward with that. But I forget this, right? And I'm also grateful to you, and I really mean this, for creating a space to share and to bring me back in and to talk. It's different to how we first met on your show. There was an audience. I missed the audience.
They're out there. There are dozens of them out there at the moment.
But yeah, and I know that's maybe a deep thing to say, but we all healing in some way, shape or form, So
there's almost a Harry Potter moment here where
the scar's a bit bigger than his,
and more impressive.
I don't have a wand. I've got an iPhone though. So
but if I think, Harry Potter survived because of the love of his parents, the love of your brother, of your family bringing you out there. I mean, if that was me, I would have been throwing my sisters towards the shark.
Definitely you. Yes.
Safe in the knowledge that the shark sort of turned around and left as a result.
Yeah, peace offering. And please bring the rewards.
Oh, but I mean, to have that bond and to bring you through and to give you that sliding door moment where half an hour later, half an hour earlier, this in all likelihood would never have happened. And who knows who Caleb would be today, where you would be.
It's a great question.
But one of the things I've always really admired about you is that you have accepted this journey. By and large, I know there are moments where it's a little harder and you have those slightly darker times, but you've taken on something and not just accept, okay, well, this is where I am, but have you made the best of it? Not just in showing people who you are and what you can do, but by making people realize what is possible.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think, and I thank you for saying that. And I do think I do some of those things. But it's also the community that I'm surrounded by and the tribe I'm surrounded by. But it goes both ways because I have to make a decision. I had to make a decision in the hospital bed to kind of, well, get out of bed. I was in hospital for 10 days. My body was strong and I was just ready to get out of there. So, and even going back to university and these things, the facilities and the support were and are there. So, I speak about making the right choices and having the right mindset because I have my own challenges with making those choices. But when you do something that puts you in an upwards trajectory or positive direction, I find I've met audiences or individuals or tribes that also are moving in an upwards direction. What is that thing about BMI, that your BMI sort of matches the 5 people that you live with eventually. So it's careful who you surround yourself with, right? And informs your language. So I'm very blessed to be surrounded by great, encouraging individuals, and I seek them out and they find me. And I'm making that choice, and I'm realizing that I'm throwing something at the wall, something's bouncing back, and there's feedback. So I'm also trying to listen to that feedback. But it's you mentioned like who was Caleb, who would Caleb have been if he hadn't have lost his leg? And it's a hard question for me to answer because I kind of, a part of me still thinks about that because a part of me is still very much here. And the other part of me was given a challenge on the quest and so overcome the challenge, but now there's a scar and it's dealing with what that narrative also brings, whether it's playing a differently abled character or whether it's sharing my story like this or whether it's also doing a 9-to-5 sales role, and both of those being okay. Sometimes if you herald it as the survivor, it can be distracting as well, and identifying. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes a huge amount of sense because it's so easy, and I hope I haven't fallen into this trap myself, but I just love your story and the importance of it, but to picture you as, to identify you as, to characterize you as Caleb the shark survivor, Caleb who is the amputee, Caleb who is kind of what we see, as opposed to, well, this is just Caleb, and some people have blonde hair and some people have long fingernails, and this is Caleb.
Some people are crippled, like me.
But I suppose it's choosing how you define yourself and how you let other people define yourself.
Yeah, and I think humor is also a great tool,
and you use it
and
well.
You use it as well. You bring it out in me. I think if we need to be able to also laugh at our situations, not maybe when the body's still fresh and warm on the bed, but I think we choose to make meaning from whatever we experience. And I speak about mindsets and victim versus survivor mindset. And, an article came out when I lost my leg, a shark attack victim. And that word just makes my neck crawl. Because
didn't strike a chord with you.
Didn't strike a chord. What struck a chord was a shark attack survivor reaching out to me to say, just want to remind you that you're a survivor. So you move in that direction. And often we have the victim, right? The victim mindset, which is ever present. But I try to remind people there's also someone here brandishing a flaming sword that's going to have a conversation with the victim mindset. And if we can have this, we can also have this. Where there's dark, there's light. So what we say to ourselves and how we see ourselves is extremely important. And I'm starting to learn these things now, like how I see myself. If I'm too much of a victim sometimes just because of this, well, I'm not going to get out into the world and do things and learn and grow. And that's really what I'm hungry for. I'm a curious person. I mean, my name means faithful companion. It's as simple as the dog, like a puppy that follows you around and always wants to learn. And that's what's inside of me, right? And I want to share with the world, but I also want to engage with the world and learn.
I think there's also the element of the story that hasn't been told, and that's you've got a shark who survived an encounter with Caleb Swanepoel.
Here we go.
Yeah, are we telling the shark story here?
We are not including the shark.
Here's a shark in therapy.
The shark's definitely in therapy, but like several rounds of therapy.
I reckon by the end of this year there'll be a Huisgenoot cover now that you're this CakeNet television star.
The shark's been in the shadows though. Hey? I mean, I've been in the water many times since I've lost my leg, and I sometimes do look around and I'm like, the one foot's still there, and I peer into the shadows. I'm still waiting. So if you do hear this podcast, madam or sir, come to me.
You lead into a space that I think many people are fascinated about when you've gone through something like this. Can you go back? How do you go back? What was it like when you first went back into the water, and did you really have to force yourself, or was there a, you know what, I'm going to own this space. I'm not going to let the memory of what happened change my relationship with the water.
I think it was a bit of both. It was, from people that were supporting me saying, listen, when the stitches come out, like, you should go back as soon as you can. And that was from other survivors also just messaging me and sharing that message. So it was something that I wanted to do, but also my community, my tribe around me were very much thinking in that way as well. So theatre is a team sport. Rugby is a team sport. You need your players to support you when you're playing the game, which we're all playing. And going back into the water the first time, it didn't feel difficult to go in because I understood the environment, so I wasn't going to go deep. I was going in with my brother, who actually saved me. And I decided as well, because people were writing a lot about my story at the time, I would just combine it with a PR thing I had to do. So they got the first swim and I got some photos out of it. And it felt really awkward, actually, because if you close your eyes and you imagine lying on a hot beach and then getting up and running into the waves and diving in, which we all love to do, I kind of had all of that, and then I started hopping into the sea. And it felt so weird because I could still feel my right leg. I still had a lot of phantom sensation and phantom pain. And I was holding onto my brother's shoulder, kind of hopping with him. And that feeling of that having less balance or strange, being kind of not sure-footed, excuse the pun, heading into the sea. And also we use our feet when we're in the water to feel, to kind of beat our eyes when we can't see under the water. So I've got this one foot sort of hopping and holding onto my brother, and then feeling the cold ocean, and it felt awkward. And I think it took quite a while for me to feel comfortable in the ocean, but still till this day, it'll just come like this, and I'll have a moment where I kind of just feel something, and I'll turn around and I'll look, and it can be in the warmest ocean or the coldest ocean, so coldest sea. And it's a weird thing. So I think a part of that still lives with me. It's obviously part of the processing, and it's strange to explain that 10 years later, because actually tomorrow is my the 27th of June is my
that's the 10-year anniversary.
And I know maybe this episode comes out later, but yeah, it's 10 years. Yeah, 10 years, quite wild, actually.
That's
So I was actually at Buffalo Bay 10 years ago today, and not knowing that my brother's arriving the next day and me heading into the ocean with them would change my life forever. So that's quite cool to share that with you, I guess.
That's I don't know if special anniversary is the word, but I think where you can take enormous joy, and where you can crack open a bottle of the sort of champagne that you TV stars now take for granted, and
popping bottles,
mere mortals have on extra special occasions.
I'll hook you up, okay?
Oh, you're a good man. Is that you can now look back on 10 years where I don't think it's a Survivor story. I think it's gone well beyond that. Yeah, Survivor does infer you're clinging on and you're hanging on, and you've burst through that barrier a long time ago, and really taken ownership of this story. And so many people, we said recently on the show, a couple of the rugby guys, a couple of the cricket guys, do you realize how much you have inspired people? And there are thousands of people you will never ever meet, but they've heard your story through my show, through radio interviews, reading about you, and you will never know just how much what you have done has given people a belief in getting over their own shark attack, whatever that space might be.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, because I think often we forget that our stories make an impact. Like, I sometimes don't believe that sharing my story and connecting, that it has an impact. And I really appreciate what you're saying, that I also looking at it's not just a survival story, it's also a breaking through, and maybe bits of thriving. Bits of thriving. That's terrible English, but there are moments of thrivability that are.
It's because you've been speaking only Afrikaans the last 3 months. The English has gone completely.
But I think it's important to also acknowledge that, and for the people that are sharing, that are inspiring, if that is really the case, it's sometimes hard to hold on to that. I mean, I don't know how you. If someone says that to you, and you've definitely had this before in terms of whose stories you share, the impact that you make, the audiences that you reach, the opportunities you give other people to have their story shared. When you hear that, and I'm not trying to turn the podcast onto you, but how do you feel when someone's like, you inspire so many people? Does that land for you? Because it's hard to make it land, right? I don't know.
Well, I think for many international media organizations have described me as the Mother Teresa of this particular space, and the sick children that I've healed. And
Of course. Listen, I've got something that really needs growing back here.
that might be beyond even me. No, I think what I've been able to do for many years now is properly self-indulgent, because I have loads of fun pretending to have a proper job, to the eternal annoyance of my wife, who does have a proper job. But when you have a platform to tell stories, and your name came up at a talk I gave a while back, where the expectation, when I was asked about some of the great guests I've had, some of the great conversations I've had, and there are Oscar winners and Olympic gold medals and world champions that have come across the stages and platforms that I've done over the years. But when people can see somebody who they identify with on an everyday level. So I might not be able to identify with Evander Holyfield as a boxing world champion, but I can identify with Ron Rutland, who's just an everyday guy who decided to cycle halfway around the world and raise money for charity. I think when people see the kind of person that could be me, I could be having a braai with this guy. It's not the superstar who I've watched growing up in the movies. This is this was a 19, 20-year-old kid. I was a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid. Something's happened to them, and this is how they've dealt with it. And I think that blue-collar point of identification is one that's really, really valuable and valid, because often the real massive star is in a world that us everyday people can't always identify with.
Accessible.
Whereas somebody who walks the street, who goes to the same supermarket that we do, who lives the same kind of life, but has had something extraordinary or done something extraordinary, that's where we go, hang on, maybe I can do that too in my own kind of way. And I think that's where I get so much joy and value. Not that I don't like hanging out with the superstars.
Of course not. We all love them.
Boost social media numbers
Yeah.
magnificently. 2.6 million on the Michael McIntyre video on Instagram, if you haven't seen it.
Please go see it.
But that's it's a really important space, and it takes it back as I return the ball that you tossed onto my side of the net, where that's the value of your story. You know, if you'd been Caleb Kardashian who lost his leg, it would have been very different to, well, you're just Caleb, an everyday guy, aspiring student from Cape Town who has lost his leg. And that's what makes the entry point to the story a lot more tangible, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm just a comment that's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
You're just thinking of being Caleb Kardashian, aren't you?
No. No, I think it's, I come from a very small town. I come from Prince Albert, not the piercing, the town.
I think town is generous. The word Hamlet
Please.
comes to mind.
Come on. My aunt runs a restaurant there.
No, she runs the restaurant.
She runs the Lazy Lizard, which has great coffee and just wonderful, wonderful food. And my uncle's Peruvian, so that also gets injected into the flavors of the restaurant. And just up the road is my mom's school. So my mom homeschooled us and started a grassroots education school in the middle of nowhere, 4 hours from the nearest city, 2 hours from George, I guess. But grew up barefoot there and part of a community. So I feel very at home in those kinds of spaces. And growing up, I realized as well, and till this day, what really drives me is human connection. And it's starting to mature, I think, as well, in kind of sitting in it and enjoying it versus I do go like this and I do get very excited, but I think just appreciating that that's what comes naturally for me. Everything from having a conversation with the granny in front of me at Pick and Pay in the line, to connecting like this, to reaching out to someone I'm inspired by on social, to sharing my story, to being on TV, to being at home, the Lazy Lizard, doesn't really matter. But I think for me, it's down to human connection, and real human connection, when two people have to come together in order for that feeling to manifest itself. It doesn't just come because I have a good story and I'm a lot younger and more, have more vitality than you. I was trying to make a joke there as well as being serious, but because you also bringing your part. So I love that sort of that crucible. In the crucible, we get to, kind of create something. And again, it's that thing inside of me that just is attracted to others and their stories, and then it brings out the sharing and the vulnerability. So, if I can make money from human connection, I'll be very, very stoked.
Vast amounts of
Let's
it.
manifest
That's
that, shall we?
All comes down to finances at the end. You wear all of this very lightly, despite the degree of fame. In fact, I think at last check, both of Prince Albert streets are now named after you. But it's only going to grow if things head in this path, because it's a really exciting new space. You've got this acting role. It's based on your own story. That will only take you so far, though. It can't be that, right, well, the new James Bond lost his leg to a shark attack, and here it is. There will be spaces which cannot and must not be defined by just one element of you. Yeah. So as you look past this, you've clearly had a great deal of fun with it. You've enjoyed this space. You were studying acting when the shark attack happened, so it's clearly in your blood. How are you seeing now the next 5-10 years? What would you like to do? Where would you like to go with this very evident talent that you have?
So I think it brings it back to that human connection element, finding a way to create time and financial freedom for myself, if we're looking at it from a career perspective, to keep that human connection alive in whatever I do. So, one thing I'm never going to stop doing is sharing my story. I think it from the feedback I get and from being invited and being included in spaces like this, it's a reminder for me to keep sharing it and to keep reaching others. And I'm very grateful and humbled by that. So I'll continue to be a speaker and a storyteller. Acting is something that I really enjoy doing. I've done theatre and I've now done TV as well. We're doing TV, and I will always be open to acting roles and roles where I can step into other characters and share and connect. But I think for me, it's also about channeling the skills I have outside of purely acting. The fact that I love speaking and connecting, the fact that I love storytelling, I love branding, to get into maybe a slightly more commercialized space in the media space, to really impact brands and how they are connecting with their audiences, how we look after audiences, how we sell to audiences. So really trying to kind of sort of do the MBA chapter of my career, while also keeping these other things that I really appreciate and value alive. And one of them is also, wherever I can, using my story to help protect sharks. That's kind of the long and short of it, I guess. And also see what each day brings, because again, sometimes the mindset is limiting, and just by having an open mindset and back to in the water, maybe a part of me chose to stay. So if I lead with that, hopefully that also calls and manifests things that are right for me, and that I can contribute to. That was a long-winded way of answering you, but that's the truth, man.
We'll edit it down heavily,
Please.
So very little of that will actually be heard when we go out. Whatever does happen, and I don't know exactly what it will be, but I do know that we'll be successful, partly because you certainly have the talent, but also because you have this resilience that was probably there before this happened,
but
that has been fine-tuned and been honed. And so that leaves me then in wrapping up, with people who are listening, and you've given so much comfort, counsel to people over the years, but from that very personal perspective of, you wake up on that day and the clouds are dark, and it's, God, why did this have to happen? And it will happen. It has to. We all have these demons that afflict us from time to time. Yours is a particularly vivid one in terms of our understanding of it. Is there a safe space? Is there a way that you deal with getting through that? Is there a space that you reach for? Is there something you've learnt that helps you to get through those clouds and find the sunshine?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question to answer. I can answer truthfully from, I suppose, my core. But I think, firstly, everyone's process is different. We all deal with adversity or challenges differently. But I think the first thing for me would be to start with the self. So really start with listening to what's happening. So for me, like waking up in the hospital bed and really kind of getting quiet and checking in with myself first, because I can't expect anyone else to check in with me or get any support from anyone if I don't know where I am. So the first thing I would really give people advice to do is to just get quiet with themselves and to really think, okay, where am I? What am I feeling? Where do I think it's coming from? And that really is rich ground to start from, because we all have a tribe. Sometimes they feel far away and sometimes it's hard to reach them, but we do have a tribe. For me, I realized I have people around me that I never knew would support me. Strangers, people writing to me on Facebook. So there's a community of people that do love and care for you, but it starts with you as an individual. And there's an acronym that my mother gave us at school, which I use till this day with my talks and my story. It's IADOY. So it stands for it all depends on you. If you don't make the decision to check in with yourself, if you can't make the decision to get up and get going with your day, put your one foot on the ground because the one's gone and you have to, clutch to the bathroom. If you can't do that, then you can't expect, and no one probably will be in your corner and be able to help you take that next step. But you've got to take the first step. So IADOY is a really, really powerful acronym that I use for myself. And then knowing that once I've taken that first step, something will come from that. There'll be someone to catch me, someone to help me along the way. Maybe I'm able to take the second step by myself. But it starts with also a survivor mindset and not a victim mindset. Life is tough. It's going to hit you where you don't want to be hit. You might lose something along the way. And you have to accept that and you have to move through that with, like I said, an upwards direction. So having a survivor mindset and knowing that it all depends on you first, not that you're alone, is kind of what I would leave with everyone. And I think we're tougher than we think we are. It takes this sometimes to realize it, but I think we're tougher than we think we are. And adjacent to that, also go gently with yourself. We're so hard on ourselves as human beings. It's finding that balance. It's the victims here, but there's a knight in shining armor with a flaming sword. It's getting quite hot. But there's someone also here that can pull you up, and it sits inside.
I think you summed that up really, really well. IADOU. It all depends on you. Also, I appreciate Dan's overwhelming youth. That could be another one, but we'll stick with it all depends on you. Television series coming out. That's going to be super, super cool. I'm going to ask you a favor. When that very first episode comes out, afterwards, just send me a quick WhatsApp. Tell me what that felt like and how cool that is. And then also in 3 or 4 years' time, please, only 3 or 4 levels of management I have to go through to get to you.
You've got my WhatsApp number, okay? It's not
it'll
going to change. Also,
change.
there's always pigeons.
Pigeons.
I like my pigeons. I'm like Mike Tyson.
There we go. There's your next movie star, co-star. Caleb
fucking
Swanepoel,
great, man. Thank you.
Thank you. It is always an absolute joy. You have an incredible story. You inspire so many, and I'm very much amongst those. And it's not often I would say that to somebody who willingly wears Crocs in public.
Oh
so,
my gosh.
There we
Starting out here. I've got to show you up with your Adidas shoes, man. Come on. Thank you, Dan.
A very, very special guest this week. The kid who took on a shark. He didn't just survive. He did so much more than that. And yes, he's now a major TV star, but he's also one of the single most inspirational guests I've had on the Dan Nicholl Show, Caleb Swanepoel.
You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.